clearly these children were trained on how the barricade location, what type of locks to be used. These.
What is he saying, bro? The real outside agitators were and have always been the police and the Zionist counter-protesters that do not go to that school.
The police clearing.
Do you think Johnny CIA will cover this? Yeah, 25 years later to talk about how wonderful the protesters were.
A Columbia University building that was seized by protesters. Dozens of officers arrived on campus late last night wearing riot gear. They used a ramp to get inside Hamilton Hall, which was occupied by protesters overnight on Monday. Video shows special police units entering the building through a second-story window, including our guest, who is with us now, who was first into the building. Officers say about 40 people were arrested there. The university released these images of the damage and vandalism inside Hamilton Hall. You can see overturned chairs and furniture, broken windows, and smashed panes of glass. In a statement, the university explains it made the decision to call the police after consulting with security experts and the Board of Trustees. It reads in part, quote, the decision to reach out to the NYPD.
Guys, they broke glass at Hamilton Hall to overtake it and turn it into Hind Hall, which is why we had to send in the multi-million-dollar Gestapo to break every window and every door inside of Hamilton Hall. Do you understand? And also violently arrest hundreds of students. Do you get why that narrative is so stupid? Do you understand why that's dumb as hell?
Was in response to the actions of the protesters, not the cause they are championing. We have made it clear that the life...
Oh, this tweet perfectly captures the moment. Yeah. Photo 1, NYPD lineup in dark navy shirts and light khaki pants before storming a building at Columbia tonight. Photo number 2, neo-Nazis in West Virginia like 3 days ago wearing dark navy shirts and light khaki pants. Yep. With the Confederate flags and everything. It might look like it's the same photo. It's hard to spot the differences between the two photos because it is the same photo, but it actually is a different photo, just so you know.
The university says it believes that the group that broke into the building was led by individuals who are not affiliated with Columbia. We want to ask about that. In total, police last night arrested around 230 people. They also cleared the encampment that had been up for about 2 weeks. Now the university is asking the NYPD to stay on campus until May 17th, which is just 2 days after Columbia's commencement. So a lot happening last night.
Quite a commentary. Columbia thinks it needs the NYPD there for a safe and orderly commencement. In a moment, we will speak with Deputy Commissioner of Public Information for the NYPD, Tariq Shepard. He was on the Bearcat you just saw officers using to enter Hamilton Hall last night. But first, we're joined live now by New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Mr. Mayor, good morning. Can you talk to the series of events yesterday that led Columbia to ask you and the NYPD to step in here and help out with the situation at Hamilton Hall? I know it was a last resort probably for you, but also for the university. What brought you there?
Really, the team, Commissioner Caban and his team, they were speaking with Columbia's representatives.
See, there's a reason why you only interview the police after a insane escalation like this and not the students, because most of the students are not fond of the police presence on campus, even if they themselves are not exactly fond of the pro-Palestinian movement, because they're like, well, what the are you doing? Why did you bring the police to beat the shit out of our friends? Even if we don't agree with them, you probably still shouldn't be blocking off the rest of campus and occupying it like we're a hostile entity here. But of course, the only students you will see on mainstream media will be those who are vetted carefully ahead of time, that either are already affiliated with groups like Stand With Us or many other groups that have been funded by the Knesset with grants and whatnot. That's the only students you will hear from in mainstream media. They never, ever show the actual pro-Palestinian students, ever.
In leadership, as well as the other colleges, and it was clear after I was briefed probably 2 days ago the extent of the outside agitators, as Columbia University indicated in their letter to us, that we had to do something. And I really encouraged them to look at this for the safety of the students, for the facilities, and then after breaking into Hamilton Hall, I think that the leadership at the school realized that our concern was actually materializing, and we had to really move in for the safety of those children and do it in the right way. And I see the independent observers saw how the police department deploy and use precision tactics with minimum amount of force because these.
Did they? You did kettle them so that they were not in the sight of the arrests, because we saw that. We watched that happen last night. Before moving into Hamilton Hall from the entry point from the courtyard, they literally kettled every single media person there and also the legal observers into a different hall away from the site of the actual arrest. Doesn't really seem like there were independent observers there at all.
At what point, Mr. Mayor, did you and the NYPD view this as something more than a student-led protest? You mentioned the outside agitators. Columbia talked about them and their student. They said it became clear to them that it wasn't just students inside that building. At what point was it known to you that this was something more and that there were people who maybe had plans for worse than what some of the students were up to?
Well, I believe that when we started seeing footage and we were able to identify what was always my belief based on some of the organization and individuals, but once we were able to actually confirm that with our intelligence division, and one of the individuals' husband was arrested for and convicted for terrorism. On a federal level, once we were able to identify some of the other people, I knew that.
They're talking about a woman who visited the encampment for 20 minutes, a Palestinian woman. Okay, first of all, husband of a terrorist? Like, how many degrees removed are we doing here? She also happens to be the mother of, as we found out, a Vice and NPR journalist. How insane. 4 days ago, a Palestinian woman went to the encampment. That's the only person that they could physically find to justify these actions. The woman herself is 68 years old. I highly doubt that the dude that they're calling a terrorist is actually a terrorist either, but even if he was, okay, it is a political designator regardless. The notion that like the woman herself is also guilty. What do you mean? So America is just letting in terrorists? America only lets in one kind of terrorist. Right-wing fascists into the country, okay?
There was no way I was going to allow those children to be exploited the way they were being exploited. And many people thought that this was just a natural evolution of a protest. It was not.
No.
These were professionals that were here. And I just want to send a clear message out that there are people who are harmful and are trying to radicalize our children. And we cannot ignore this, that these outside influences, I don't know if they're international. I think we need to look into that as well. Yes. But there's an attempt to radicalize young people in this country.
That's where I want to turn to Deputy Commissioner Shepard about that, because as you told us when you were walking in, you were part of the operation last night. Tell us what you discovered along the way. I know you brought in a pretty staggering visual. And then
staggering visual, chat. Get ready. Get ready with a staggering visual, by the way.
What do we know about these outside agitators? Were they very connected with these students? Did they know each other? How did this turn out the way it did and culminate in such a, I mean, I'm glad it was peaceful, but how did it get to this point?
Right. So the first thing is, as the mayor just said, once we realized that and expected that the outside agitators would step in, we started to prepare for anything and the worst case scenarios, which is their job. They're not coming in to try and unify anybody or to actually protest. They're coming in to create discord.
Right. They really wanted that moment where police and they.
Bro, this is literally just Israel defense. They were asking for it. Sorry, we are an unstoppable force. Sorry, the NYPD is a tsunami. They were basically asking for it. That's great. Thank you. Thank you to the liberal journalists at the liberal institution that is MSNBC.
You know, had that interaction, and maybe there could be video of them being dragged off, and you know, and you guys did a pretty good job of containing.
Yeah, look at that. They were looking for the cops to beat on them. They were looking for the cops to beat the shit out of them. They were welcoming it, just like Hamas welcomes Israel's ethnic cleansing campaign, just so they can garner sympathy. Oh my God, it is the exact same parallel.
Cleaning it inside the building and just walking them out. I'm sure that's not what the plan was.
Yeah, our cops did a phenomenal job last night of staying calm, organized, and really precise operation last night.
Tell us about this chain.
Yeah, so when we entered Hamilton Hall, this is not what students bring to school. Okay, this is what professionals bring to campus.
Turns out that is precisely what students bring to school. The bike lock is and was available for sale on campus via Columbia's Public Safety Department under their crime prevention discount bike, locker, and laptop lock program. This morning, this video actually had a community note. That community note was manually deleted.
Look at this.
This is the same chain.
Katie, look at this. This is an industrial.
Is this the same thing?
No, this is not.
Why was this brought here? Where's the deputy commissioner?
Why was this like? Because these are the locks that we cut off for the doors in Hamilton.
Were any outside agitators arrested at Columbia's Hamilton Hall?
I think Commissioner Weiner addressed that already.
No, they didn't.
Look at that.
LOL.
Look at this.
This is the same chain.
Katie, look at this. This is an industrial.
Is this the same thing?
You don't understand. These outside agitators, they follow the path of shinobi, okay? They are ninjas. So when the cops actually stormed the halls, they literally magically perished. They threw smoke bombs and escaped. So we could not arrest them. And then we only arrested the students. It happened to be that the hundreds of people that we arrested were all students using this Hamas chain.
Is Hamilton Hall?
I think Commissioner Weiner addressed that already.
No, they didn't. Were any arrests made of outside?
You asking me or you?
Yeah, I'm asking.
Mr. Weiner said that there was a presence of outside agitators. We know that some were arrested, but we are not getting specific about who was who. We still have to run names by Columbia, but we know that there were outside agitators inside Hamilton.
Okay, so they were arrested last night. Okay.
Absolutely.
NYPD did an amazing job arresting hundreds of college students to protect them from outside agitators, NYPD says. They've never dealt with a bike theft, so they don't know what a bike lock looks like. Yeah, there you go. Cops don't know what a bike lock looks like because they've never investigated a bike theft in their lives. Now, you see, if these outside agitators were playing Candy Crush on their phones, the cops know exactly what that's about. Look at this deleted tweet by Ali Bauman. Oh, yeah. Breaking, New York City Hall sources tell me, CBS New York, she's a CBS New York reporter, by the way, evidence of the wife of a known terrorist with protesters on Columbia University campus.
And universities. These are heavy industrial chains that were locked with bike locks, and this is what we encountered on every door inside of Hamilton Hall. And so in order for our emergency services group to enter into the building, they had to first cut through these chains, but also get rid of debris and barricaded doors that were barricaded with refrigerators, vending machines, chairs, you name it. They pushed it up against those doors to try and stop us from coming in. But our guys would not be stopped. They did a fantastic job of entering into that location and taking people into custody without incident last night. They took about 40 to 50 people into custody.
The funniest part is like the notion that even if they weren't bike locks, like even if they were regular chains, like the notion that students do not have the capacity to purchase these things is hilarious. Like, how is this evidence of anything? I love the investigation. Like, I love how stupid the NYPD is. That, like, their investigation is not even, like, offering circumstantial evidence. It's just like, here's what they used. It's readily available online and promoted by Campus Safety's very own website. No pushback by the media. The media welcomes it, by the way.
Custody inside of the lobby of Hamilton Hall last night.
So, Mr. Mayor, those 40 or 50 people that were taken into custody last night, what are they going to be charged with, and when are they going to be charged?
Well, it is a series of items. Number one, a form of burglary, trespassing, criminal mischief. Cameras were damaged. Methodologies that were used for typical actions like this, professionals use. Clearly, these children were trained on how the barricade location, what type of locks to be used. These.
What is he saying, bro? Bro, this is literally IDF shit. You might think that these are just regular children, but if you look at it carefully, you'll notice that these are children of Hamas. That's right. These are children trained by the IRGC and Hamas. One might think that these are, you know, the children of upper middle class, professional managerial class individuals. Turns out they were all sons of Hamas, but not the good kind. Not the good son of Hamas who spends all of his time talking about how Israel is awesome, but the bad kind That's right.
All these methods we saw in our videos of the type of training that they were being issued.
Yeah, I wonder why American children know how to barricade doors. Let's think about that real quick. I wonder why American children know what school supplies to use in an instance where, like, they have to barricade a door at a school. Do you think it's Hamas training? Or do you think they learn that at school, at school shooting drills? I don't know. Who's to say, guys?
By these professionals. And so they're going to be charged with those crimes. And those who are on the lawn area, the goal is for those students, it would be summative offenses. But we want the schools across the city to be clear that the property of the schools are for the students, not for those who want to come in and be disruptive to our way of life.
Can I just clarify, the 40 to 50, are they people that you know to be professional agitators? You just referred to them as children. Are they students? So just
Bro, it's so bad. It's so bad that one of the MSNBC was like, you just said they're children. Oh.
So we know how many of the people that you arrested last night were professional agitators who had no affiliation with Columbia University, and how many of them were students who are at Columbia University?
A great question, and we are sorting through that now. It has been indicated by Columbia when they reached out that the substantial number were outside influencers. When you look at the wearing all black, covering your faces completely, those methodologies, our intelligence division study this type of behavior across the globe. We just had a team that just returned from overseas looking at some of the methods that are being used.
Say it, bitch. He means Israel, by the way. Yeah. Our intelligence dictates that some of these students covered their faces, so they must be outside agitators.
With these actions, there's no coincidence that you're seeing these young people across the globe being trained with the same type of individuals, and that is our concern. It's more than just Columbia. It's more than what we saw at City College. This needs to be a clarion call for our country. These are our children, and we can't allow.
He's like, we need to do more of this everywhere around the nation. More of this, please. Yeah. Guys, you don't understand. Hamas is an international institution at this point, and they're anywhere and everywhere.
Allow them to be radicalized like children are being radicalized across the globe.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Mr. Mayor, thanks so much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it. And Mr. Deputy Commissioner, in terms of physical resistance, once you got in the building, you talked about the barricades, you talked about the vending machines and the refrigerators. Did any of the people inside the building confront police physically? Were there any altercations?
There was very minimal confrontation once ESU decided that we were going to enter that building. They did have to deploy a distraction device on the first floor of Hamilton Hall. That made some of the resistors sort of retreat, and then ESU was able to push through, cut the chains.
Bro said distractor device. It's a flashbang. He's talking about a flashbang grenade. Bro said distraction device like it's a toy. Like he dropped a squeaky toy and a bunch of puppies came running at it. Please, someone ask, what do you mean by distraction device? Like, did you drop a fidget spinner on the ground? Is that what happened? You know what radicalizes students? You know what I'm going to say. State violence. That's what radicalizes students. They're not getting radicalized at the Hamasabi broadcast, okay? The leading sponsor of these kinds of activities. They're not getting radicalized. Well, maybe they are getting radicalized against the top of the hour ad break. What radicalizes students is getting flashbanged and packed up by a bunch of Gestapo thugs whose, tax dollars are funding their overtime for the crime of being anti-genocide. That's what radicalizes students.
Get through the debris, and then we took them into custody without incident.
So no injuries last night?
No injuries as of now. We're still sorting through all of the prisoners that we took into custody. But as of now, what we saw was just a calm, precise operation. ESU did a phenomenal job last night based on what they were dealing with.
Yeah.
As we said a minute ago, Columbia has asked you all to stay on campus through graduation and even a couple of days after. How do you envision the NYPD presence now for the next several weeks?
I want you to understand something. If they do end up finding one dude who's like an alumni or one dude who's not like a college student, that still doesn't justify the actions. I also need you to understand that as well. Like, it is so unimaginably stupid. Like, the fact that they think they get away with martial law because the school believes that there's like outside agitators.
Columbia may have arrested those, some of them professionals last night, but there will still be protests, not just on campus, but in the area.
This is a serious warning to all U.S.
And so the police commissioner and the mayor will stay in constant contact with Columbia. However, we're partners in this. We don't want to see this return to what it was last night or before. However, Columbia does have to take some onus and make sure they secure their campus, but we will be there as a partner to make sure.
Yeah, this chatter is correct, by the way. Outside agitators, not organic intersectional moral revulsion. There were definitely a few people sneaking in on every campus. Talia had a story about her discovering the person next to her was a Zionist cutting content. Yeah.
That it doesn't return. But what that looks like, we haven't decided yet, but we'll stay in constant contact.
I think the question about who the outside agitators are, how many there are, that's a longer investigation. And staying on campus could be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that front.
Absolutely. And we'll be a good partner in that way, but we have to make sure.
No, walk through it. How? Do you feel like the dumbass that you're talking to has any investigative capacity? Like, literally, he showed you a bike lock and was like, this is a bike lock of Hamas. The do you mean? Yeah, no, a unprecedented amount of police activity on campus surely will be necessary and good. Perhaps you should use more distraction devices on the students. You know, this will definitely work.
Sure that Columbia is doing their part to secure their campus, and when needed, the NYPD will be there like we are for this entire city, 365 days a year.
And you all said yesterday part of the reason you did decide to go in with Columbia's help and insistence was because you had recognized people who were known to you at the NYPD as not students, but people who were there to cause trouble. Is that true?
Right, that's true. And to make it clear, Columbia identified many of these individuals as non-students as well. And so once they recognized that and then they broke into Hamilton Hall, that was a clear indication that something had to be done. And then they reached out in their letter.
It's great that, like, no evidence is necessary for any of the statements that he's bringing forward. You could just simply, guys, hear me out here, okay? I'm about to say something crazy, partially a little up. Okay, you could ask the student organizers if there is veracity to any of these statements. I know, I'm a little crazy. Okay, I know I'm a little crazy, but you could ask those guys. I'm just saying, a bridge too far potentially. I know. Of course, that would require you to air any kind of footage that makes these student protesters very reasonable, that will most likely make them look super reasonable and their demands perfectly morally just. I know you can't have that, which is why you'll just keep doing this instead.